The challenge begins. The Death Labyrinth was not a place for the weak. It was a challenge created by the oldest and most powerful aliens in the galaxy. They called it the ultimate test of mind and body. Every 10 years, the Galactic Council invited the smartest warriors, hunters, and strategists from hundreds of worlds. The winner would earn not only riches but also a secret alien technology so powerful that entire planets would fight for it. The losers would never return. In the vast arena of the Council world, thousands of aliens had gathered. Giant screens showed the glowing gates of the labyrinth, a massive structure made of living stone that shifted and breathed like a creature. Its walls moved, its traps reset, and its dangers adapted to every challenger. This was not a maze built to be solved. It was a maze built to kill. Among the competitors, towering insectoids, scaled reptilians, and crystal-skinned thinkers stood ready. They were champions of their species, trained for years to face this trial. And then there was Ethan Cole, a human. He was not a soldier, not a famous explorer, not even a trained fighter. He was an engineer from Earth. He stood quietly, wearing nothing more than light armor and carrying a small pack of tools, while the others carried high-tech scanners, plasma weapons, and shield generators. Ethan carried a simple rope, a notebook, and a piece of chalk. The alien crowd laughed when they saw him. "Is this a joke?" one alien commentator said, his voice echoing over the speakers. "Did they bring a human here just to entertain us before he dies?" Another added, "Humans were not considered the strongest or the fastest in the galaxy. Most aliens saw them as fragile creatures with short lives and little physical power." But Ethan's eyes held something they didn't notice, a quiet confidence. The council speaker, a tall being with silver skin and 6 eyes, raised a hand. "Competitors," he announced, "you stand before the Death Labyrinth. Inside are traps, beasts, and puzzles that will test every skill you have. You will enter together, but only one may leave alive. The gates will open in 10 seconds. May the strongest mind survive." A deep horn sounded. The gates of the labyrinth groaned and slid apart, revealing a corridor of shifting stone and strange glowing symbols. The air inside was heavy, carrying the scent of metal and something old, something that had seen many deaths. The competitors surged forward, their weapons ready, their scanners scanning for danger. Ethan did not rush. He stepped forward slowly, his eyes moving over every detail, the way the floor stones trembled, the strange rhythm in the flickering lights, the faint breeze coming from somewhere unseen. He remembered something his grandfather had told him when he was a child. If you walk into a place built to trap you, don't fight it, learn it. Every trap has a maker, and every maker leaves a weakness. Ethan smiled slightly, gripping the chalk in his hand. He made a small mark on the wall as he walked, leaving a trail only he would understand. The first chamber came quickly, a wide-open floor with strange tiles. The insectoid champion rushed ahead, stepping on one tile that suddenly dropped away, sending him into a pit of spikes. The crowd roared in shock. Another alien leapt forward, only to be crushed by a falling block from above. The survivors slowed, scanning and calculating. Ethan crouched down, pressing his palm against the tiles, feeling for vibrations. He noticed that every dangerous tile had a faint hum, a rhythm like a heartbeat. He timed his steps carefully, moving only when the hum was weakest. While others ran, he walked. By the time the survivors reached the other side, they realized the human had crossed without activating a single trap. One alien competitor, a tall reptilian warrior, glared at him. "You're slow," it hissed. "You won't survive the next stage." Ethan only gave a small shrug. "It's not about speed," he said softly, though only to himself. "It's about knowing when to move." The second corridor opened ahead, and already Ethan could hear distant whispers, voices strange and cold, drifting through the air. But that was for the next part of the challenge. For now, Ethan had taken his first steps into the Death Labyrinth, and the galaxy was about to learn that humans, though small and fragile, had something far more dangerous than brute strength. They had the mind to turn a hopeless fight into a clever victory. Asterisk first blood in the maze. The first chamber was behind them, but the Death Labyrinth had only just begun as the competitors moved. Deeper, the walls shifted, sealing off the path behind them with a deep grinding noise. Now there was no turning back. The corridor ahead opened into a massive cavern, its floor broken into narrow bridges made of dark, polished metal. Far below, a glowing green liquid bubbled, acid strong enough to dissolve bone in seconds. Steam hissed upward, carrying a stinging metallic smell. The bridges were thin, swaying slightly with each step, and somewhere in the distance, a slow, rhythmic clang, clang. Clang echoed through the chamber. No one could see what was making the sound, but it felt like the maze itself was alive. The insectoid warrior, its 4 legs built for speed, sprinted ahead without hesitation. Its claws scraped the bridge, sending sparks into the acid mist. Several other competitors followed, rushing forward as the alien crowd watching from outside roared in excitement. Halfway across, the first bridge trembled, then snapped like glass. The insectoid vanished into the green fog with a sharp scream. A moment later, the sound stopped, replaced by the sick hiss of acid eating through armor and flesh. Panic spread. Some tried to leap between bridges, but the moment their feet landed, sections of the metal shattered beneath them. 2 more fell, one into the acid, the other disappearing into the mist below. The survivors froze, looking for a safe path. Ethan didn't move. He was standing at the edge, his eyes half closed. He wasn't watching the bridges, he was listening. That slow clang, clang, wasn't random. It was in rhythm, and with every clang, the vibration traveled through the bridge, making certain sections weak. The alien competitors were watching their steps, but they weren't listening. Ethan crouched down, touching the metal with his fingertips. He felt it, a faint pulse, like the beat of a drum. If he stepped just after the pulse, the bridge stayed firm. If he stepped during it, the section would break. It was the same trick as old Earth hiking. Mentor had taught him years ago. Listen to the Earth, and it will tell you where to step. This wasn't Earth, but the principle was the same. While others stood frozen, Ethan began to walk. 1 step, pause, wait for the clang, then step again, slow, steady, never rushing. The alien crowd outside began to murmur. Why was the human moving so slowly? Why wasn't he running like the rest? And yet, bridge by bridge, he crossed without a single collapse beneath him. Halfway across, he passed a crystal-skinned thinker who was still scanning the bridge with advanced sensors. The alien looked up at him, puzzled. You have no scanner. How are you reading the structure? It asked. Ethan gave a faint smile. I'm not reading it, he said. I'm listening to it. Then he stepped past, leaving the alien staring in confusion. When Ethan reached the far side, only 6 competitors remained. They glanced at him with a mixture of suspicion and respect. He was supposed to be the weakest, yet he had crossed more safely than most of them. In the distance, the walls shifted again, revealing a dark, narrow tunnel ahead. From deep within, strange whispers floated out. Soft, cold, and almost human. The next trial had already begun, and this time, it wouldn't be their feet that would betray them. It would be their minds. The Hall of Whispers, the narrow tunnel ahead, seemed harmless at first. No traps, no shaking floors, no shifting bridges. Just a long passage of smooth, dark stone, lit by faint blue lines that pulsed like veins. But the moment the competitors stepped inside, the air changed. It felt heavier, colder, as if the walls themselves were breathing. Then the voices began. At first, they were faint, a distant murmur like wind moving through cracks. But with each step, they grew louder, clearer. They were not alien voices. They were voices from home, from memories, from pain. A reptilian warrior froze, its yellow eyes wide. It whispered something in its own language before dropping to its knees. One by one, the others began to falter. The whispers weren't random. They were speaking secrets. Fears, and regrets, things no one else could know. One crystal-skinned alien clutched its head and screamed. The sound echoed down the tunnel before being swallowed by the darkness ahead. Ethan slowed his pace. The whispers were inside his head. Now some sounded like his mother calling his name. Some sounded like old friends he had lost. One sounded like the voice of a man he could never forgive. But Ethan had heard this trick before. Not in a maze, but in life. He remembered nights alone during storms, when strange sounds made the mind imagine things that weren't there. He remembered how human soldiers in old Earth wars would sing, or talk to themselves to block the sound of enemy propaganda broadcasts. Ethan reached into his memory and began to hum, a simple Earth tune, low, steady, and familiar. It was the song his grandfather used to whistle while fixing machines. The melody wrapped around him like a shield. The whispers tried to grow louder, but the song kept them out, ahead. A massive insectoid warrior staggered toward him, its claws twitching, its eyes were wide, and it muttered nonsense under its breath. Ethan stepped aside as it stumbled past him, screaming into the air before running back toward the entrance, straight into a wall that sealed behind them moments ago. The insectoid pounded on the stone in panic, then fell silent. The whispers had taken it. Ethan kept walking, the tune steady, his breathing calm. The blue lines in the walls began to fade as the end of the tunnel came into view. Light spilled from the next chamber, warm, golden light that felt almost safe. But Ethan knew better. In the Death Labyrinth, safety was just another trap. When he stepped into the light, he counted only 4 others left. They looked at him strangely, as if wondering why the whispers hadn't touched him. Ethan only said one thing: sometimes the only shield you need is a song. Then his eyes shifted to the new chamber, a vast jungle where shadows moved. Without wind, something in there was alive, and it was hunting. The predator's hunt. The golden light of the jungle chamber was warm. But it was a liar. The air was thick with moisture, heavy with the smell of strange flowers and damp soil. Above, enormous leaves dripped with glowing nectar. Below, the ground was covered in moss that muffled every footstep. The walls of the chamber were hidden by dense foliage, turning the place into a wild alien forest. Ethan stepped in slowly, scanning the shadows. He had been in jungles before, Earth's rainforests, thick and alive with the sound of insects. But this place was different. It was too quiet, too still. The kind of silence that came only when something big was watching. One of the surviving competitors, a tall reptilian warrior, moved ahead with its plasma spear ready. It sniffed the air, hissed, and then vanished into the plants without a sound. The others froze. There was no scream, no struggle, just gone. Then the first sound came, a low rumble, almost like the growl of a large cat. But deeper, a shadow moved between the trees, quick and smooth. The alien crowd outside roared in excitement. They knew this part of the trial, the predators hunt, a game the labyrinth loved to play. Ethan crouched low, his hand brushing the moss. He could feel faint vibrations, footsteps, heavy and deliberate, circling them. The other competitors began to panic, firing weapons blindly into the trees. Bright flashes lit up the leaves, but nothing hit the target. The predator was too fast. Then Ethan saw it, only for a moment. A massive creature with black fur that shimmered like oil, 6 glowing eyes, and limbs long enough to swing from tree to tree. It wasn't hunting for food, it was hunting for fun. Ethan didn't move. He remembered something from an old Earth survival guide. Predators, no matter how alien, still obey certain rules. Most chase what runs, most strike when prey moves without thinking, and most can be distracted by something more tempting. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small coil of rope from his pocket. He took the piece of reflective metal he'd been carrying since the start. He tied it to the rope and tossed it into the trees away from the group. The reflective metal spun in the air, catching the golden light. It flashed like a moving creature. The predator's eyes locked onto it instantly. With a hiss, it launched toward the false target, crashing through the branches in a blur of speed. While it was distracted, Ethan motioned for the others to move. They hesitated. Why follow the human? But the sound of the predator tearing apart the decoy convinced them. They slipped quietly through the jungle, staying low. Minutes later, they reached the far side of the chamber. The predator was still thrashing in the distance, searching for its vanished prey. Ethan glanced back once. On Earth, hunters had used shiny lures to catch fish. Here, he had used the same idea to avoid being caught himself. Only 4 competitors now stood at the entrance to the next trial. The ground ahead was made of smooth, pale stone, with hundreds of doors in every direction, and Ethan knew the labyrinth was about to change the rules again. The trap of endless doors, the jungle faded behind them, the humid air replaced by a cool, dry stillness. The 4 remaining competitors stepped into a vast circular chamber. Its walls stretched upward into darkness. Every surface was smooth, pale stone, but what caught everyone's attention were the doors. Hundreds of them, covering every wall from floor to ceiling. Each door looked identical, same size, same color, same strange alien markings. The moment they entered, the labyrinth spoke, not with a voice, but with a deep vibration in the floor. The markings on the doors began to glow faintly. A soft hum filled the air, and one by one, the doors started to open and close at random. Some revealed empty rooms, some revealed instant death, a flash of fire, a spike trap, a drop into darkness, and some stayed still. The challenge was clear. Find the right door before the chamber reset. One crystal-skinned thinker activated a scanning device. It beeped rapidly, analyzing energy patterns in the doors. But when the alien stepped forward, the door it chose opened into a blast of freezing wind and ice spikes. It was gone in seconds. The others hesitated. Ethan stood still, his eyes moving across the walls. He didn't have scanners. He didn't have advanced alien tech. But he had something else, a memory from Earth. Years ago, he had read about explorers who found their way through caves by feeling changes in air pressure. A tiny shift in the air could tell you if a tunnel was open or sealed. And in this sealed chamber, every door that led to danger had still dead air. But one door had a faint breath of movement against his skin. He took a deep, slow breath and began moving along the wall. The reptilian warrior watched him suspiciously. "What are you doing, human?" It growled. Ethan didn't answer. He was focused, feeling each handle, each seam. When his fingers brushed against one that carried a faint warmth and the gentlest flow of air, he smiled. "This one," he said simply. The insectoid competitor hissed in disbelief. "You're guessing." It snapped. "Maybe," Ethan replied, "but it's an educated guess." Without waiting, he pushed the door open. Instead of fire or ice, it revealed a narrow stone passage leading forward. Warm air flowed from it, carrying the faint scent of metal and dust. The reptilian glanced at him once, then followed. The insectoid hesitated. But with the chamber's hum growing louder, a warning that the reset was coming, it rushed in after them. The door closed behind them just as the entire room shifted. Every other door vanished into solid wall. The passage ahead was silent. But Ethan knew that silence was never safety in the Death Labyrinth. The faint metallic scent was growing stronger, and up ahead, the floor began to slope downward. He didn't know what was waiting, but he had the feeling it wasn't going to be a trap you could avoid with air pressure alone. The final puzzle. The passage narrowed until it opened into a massive circular room. The walls here were smooth, dark metal, reflecting the dim blue glow from the ceiling. In the center of the room floated a giant cube made of smaller blocks. Each block shimmered with alien symbols, shifting and rotating slowly. Around the cube, gravity twisted. Chunks of stone and metal drifted in the air like lazy fish in water. The reptilian warrior stepped forward and was instantly pulled upward. It twisted in the air, slammed against one of the floating blocks, and vanished in a flash of light. The insectoid competitor hissed but didn't move closer. The labyrinth was speaking again, not with sound, but with movement. The cube shifted, Blocks sliding into new positions, opening some paths and closing. Others, the goal was clear. Reach the glowing core inside the cube. The insectoid activated its claws. Leaping onto the nearest block, it moved fast. But the cube shifted again, sliding a block away from under its feet. The insectoid tumbled into the void below. A burst of light, and it was gone. Ethan was alone now. He stepped forward slowly, feeling the pull of the strange gravity. It didn't behave like normal. Some places pushed him away, others pulled him closer, and then it hit him. He had seen this before. Not here, not in space, but in an old sliding puzzle game his father used to give him when he was a kid. A square frame with tiles you had to move into the right order by sliding them one space at a time. It had taught him patience, pattern recognition, and how to see moves before making them. He studied the cube. Every time it shifted, he could see how the movement opened one path while closing another. The trick wasn't to fight it. The trick was to wait for the right sequence, to plan 3 moves ahead. Ethan grabbed the floating metal shard and used it to push himself toward the first block. The strange gravity caught him, pulling him toward the cube. He landed softly, gripping the edge. Then he waited. 1 shift, 2 shifts, the block slid, and a new path opened. He moved quickly, leaping to the next block before it rotated away. Shift, wait, jump, over and over, like sliding tiles into place. The alien crowd watching outside was silent now. They didn't understand how the human was reading the cube like a book, block by block. Ethan reached the center. The glowing core pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat. He touched it, and the entire cube froze. The strange gravity vanished, and he floated gently to the floor. The labyrinth walls began to dissolve into light. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, the sound of the maze acknowledging its winner. Ethan stood alone in the empty space, breathing slowly. The game was over. 1 challenge remained, leaving the labyrinth alive. Victory and respect. The blinding light faded. Ethan felt solid ground under his boots again. The metallic scent of the labyrinth was gone, replaced by fresh, cool air. He was standing in the center of the Galactic Council arena. The crowd of thousands, maybe millions of aliens stared in stunned silence. All around him, giant holographic screens showed the replay of his journey. Every trap avoided, every predator outwitted, every puzzle solved. One by one, the council members rose from their seats. The speaker, tall and silver-skinned, stepped forward. Competitors of the Death Labyrinth. The speaker's voice echoed. "This cycle has ended. There is only one survivor." He turned toward Ethan, his 6 eyes narrowing as if trying to understand him. "Ethan Cole of Earth," he said slowly, "you have won where champions of 100 worlds have failed." A low murmur spread through the alien crowd. They had watched warriors faster, stronger, and more heavily armed than this human fall in minutes, and yet here he stood, alive, unharmed, calm. Ethan didn't raise his arms in victory. He didn't roar or celebrate. He just gave a small, almost tired smile. The speaker extended a hand toward the prize, a crystalline sphere glowing with shifting patterns of light, a relic of immense power. It floated toward Ethan, stopping just in front of him. He could feel the energy inside it, humming like a captured storm. "By right of survival," the speaker said, "this is yours." Ethan took the sphere, feeling its weight. But when the speaker asked him what secret weapon Earth must have to produce someone like him, Ethan only chuckled. "No secret weapon," he said, his voice calm but carrying across the arena. "Just a few old Earth tricks." The crowd didn't cheer immediately. They were still processing what they had seen. A human had just proved that strength wasn't the only path to victory, that in a galaxy obsessed with power, speed, and technology, sometimes the sharpest weapon was the mind. And in that moment, something shifted. Every alien there now knew that humans, small, fragile, short-lived humans, were not to be underestimated. As Ethan turned to leave, the gates of the arena opened. He walked through without looking back, Behind him, the alien commentators finally spoke. Their words were simple but carried across every broadcast channel in the galaxy. The human didn't just survive the Death Labyrinth, one said. He outsmarted it. And somewhere, on worlds far from Earth, those words planted the first seeds of fear and respect. Because now they knew, if a human could beat the labyrinth, a human could beat anything.